Hello chess friends and welcome to Qxf Chess channel and welcome back to the Chessable Masters in 2021. We're back now in the quarterfinals, we're back now in the knockout stage, and we're following the great match game between the two top grandmasters, Wesley and Jorden van Foreest. So yesterday in the day one of the quarterfinals, it was sort of a surprise. Jorden van Foreest played a great draw against Wesley, so he managed to get a draw in the first 4 games against the favorite to Wesley. So now in day 2 we'll see now what will happen. At the end of the video I'm going to reveal, of course, the result of this super match, but first we're covering one great game. In my opinion, it was really beautiful chess game, because this is one of these games that deserves to be written down, in my opinion, in chess history books or maybe in chess theory books, because this game has, I think, great strategical and tactical elements of the King's Indian. There are also several theoretical novelties which here Wesley will show us. I think it's also a great way how to counterplay Black's ideas in the King's Indian. So in my opinion, as I said, it has really great value for us, this particular game that of course wanted to show, especially because I'm a King's Indian player myself. So let's check out now what happened. Here we have d4 by Wesley. So we have knight to f6, c4, we have g6, knight to c3, bishop to g7, e4. The King's Indian is on the board, and now after move d6, this is now the normal way to proceed here, because e5 was already a great strategical opportunity for white to get some kind of a space advantage against this knight on f6. So here knight to f3 played by Wesley, casting. We have now bishop to e2, which is now the so-called Orthodox variation or the classical variation of the King's Indian. We have now e5, and here Wesley plays, I think, the most popular line. Castle simply here waits a little bit. Here he has, of course, now still this tension in the center of the board. In the continuation of the game, basically there are now 2 choices here for Black. Black can play this provocative move knight to c6, which leads now into very complicated and sharp battle after move d5. Then of course knight to e7 is happening, and then we have this one, we have this blocked pawn structure, we have this directed attack. Of course white is attacking this side of the board because the pawn chain is showing us the direction. Black is of course attacking this side of the board, but here Jorden van Foreest played a different line, played a line that is, I think, more simplified for Black. In the continuation we have now e takes d4, we have knight to d4, and basically the game transposed now into the so-called Maroczy Bind pawn structure. The Maroczy Bind pawn structure is this setup with c4 e4 pawns and with this knight in the center of the board. The main goal of this pawn structure for white is simply to improve the position. White will never rush into attacks in this particular structures. What white will probably do most of the times is to build some kind of a very nice setup and firm setup in the center of the board. We'll play simply f3, we'll play probably something like bishop to e3. If you of course not play here from Black's perspective some sharp move, then white will build, as I said, simply this strategical setup: f3, bishop to e3, queen to d2, rook to d1, maybe rook to c1, even b3 fixing this pawn, and then from that point on white will build the attack very slowly, will still maybe try even something like h3, then maybe f4. So as I said, white's attack here is not fast. White is playing this game more strategically. As I said, white is playing the game more positionally. What Black needs to do against Maroczy Bind structures are basically 2 ideas. In my opinion, one of the great ideas can be to fix your position around the square c5 or e5. What I mean about that is that you could try maybe to fix one of your knights or maybe a different piece around the square c5 or e5. What I mean about fixed, I mean maybe if maybe this pawn on b5 or on the b5 would be on b5, for instance, if you can just imagine that, and then you fix something around the square c5, then we would have really a great strategical and blocked pawn structure in the center of the board. Then I think Black could have a great counterplay, but so far you see you cannot fix the position around the square c5 e5, because this potential outpost can be always kicked away with f4 moves or with b4 moves. So that's why there is also a different strategy how to approach the game from Black's perspective. You can try a central breakthrough with the move c6 and d5, which is the natural way, and in my opinion really one of the best ways to break this Maroczy Bind structure if you're playing, of course, the King's Indian now from Black's perspective. So that's why you understand now the next couple more moves very easily. Here played by Jorden van Foreest. He plays now first the move rook to e8, attacks of course the e4 pawn. We have now f3 and now c6, which is now the immediate preparation to play the d5 pawn breakthrough. So here in the continuation, Wesley plays an interesting idea, and in my opinion it's really one of the best ways to proceed in this particular line. There are lines here from white's perspective. White can play the move bishop to e3, but the problem, in my opinion at least, is that the bishop is a little bit loose on the board, the bishop becomes always an object of the attack by black with the rook, because now with the move d5, the pawn structure on the e file could be clarified, could be of course open, and then the bishop, as I said, is a little bit loose on the board. So that's why the bishop becomes many times in these types of ideas the main attacking theme for black. So many times you see even some ideas of knight to d5, for instance. So far it's not possible, knight to d5, then e takes d5, then rook to e3 is a great opportunity so for black. So that's why I like really this line by Wesley. So he plays king to h1, waits a little bit with the bishop. He can still play very flexible, in a very flexible way with the bishops. He can play bishop e3, bishop to f4, bishop to g5 are opportunities. And this king to h1 is a great idea because there are of course also some tactical ideas. If the queen comes on b6, then there are maybe some ideas of knight takes e4 and then bishop to d4. So you don't want to have your king where the queen could be actually attack the king. So that's why I really love this move, king to h1. So here d5 immediately by Jorden van Foreest. So Jorden is not losing any tempi, he's breaking through immediately. We have c takes d5, c takes d5, and now bishop to g5. Here in the continuation we have knight to c6 by Jorden van Foreest, but probably here maybe d takes e4. In my opinion, it's a much better way to proceed here, because after maybe something like d takes e4, we could try now h6, and after bishop to h4, even g5, bishop to g3. But now actually we could battle for the e4 pawn and also for this d4 knight. Maybe in the continuation we could try something like this, knight takes e4, knight takes e4, maybe rook to e4. But again, black can face this problem, so white can play this move, knight to b5. So as I said, there are many tactical lines for white and for black. You shouldn't be so greedy about the centralized pawns, because in such an open game now, when the pawn structure is opened, like Jorden van Foreest did here with the move d5, it's not a huge problem even if you lose some pawns. It's all about piece activity, because the center will get open, and when that happens, it's all about, as I said, piece activity, piece activity, piece activity. You shouldn't count really pawns, because you see here we have a lack of development still by black. Black hasn't played with the bishop, black hasn't played with the knight. So when we see the pieces, when you see the activity of both players, I think white is much better. So that's why here bishop to g5, as we said, knight to c6. So here Jorden van Foreest keeps the tension here in the center. Now a great move here by Wesley. So he's pinning now twice here. Wesley, so he's creating the pin here by this dark bishop against this knight, but also with this light square bishop against this knight. So now after move h6, we have now bishop to h4, and now comes the critical moment of this particular game. Here Jorden van Foreest plays the move queen to b6, and it's a really huge blunder. The problem is now this should be the continuation g5, as we said, at least getting rid of this one pin, because now maybe in the continuation black white could play bishop to f2. Now again we play the simplified line here, play something like e takes d5, knight to c6 here is an opportunity maybe, and then to trade off the queens. But here, as I said, it's not so easy to play the game here from black's perspective. After move bishop to f2, actually the best way is to simply proceed with the normal bishop to d7 to slow down the pace of the game a little bit, and I think black has solved all of the position problems. But that would be the continuation, of course, after move g5. But unfortunately for Jorden van Foreest, here he played queen to b6, and it became now his main problem. Maybe you can pause now the video. It's not so easy now to see the best continuation. Try to see now the best continuation. It's actually almost like a winning continuation. As I said, take your time. It's now to win this game from white perspective. Try to see, as I said, simply the best continuation. So it's not, in my opinion, easy to see, because you should calculate everything very carefully. So take your time. Always try to see every candidate move. What I mean about the candidate move, so candidate moves are, of course, because we have really a great tension, how should we calculate this tactics? We are always searching for candidate moves, and basically the main candidate moves here are attacking moves. Attacking moves are, of course, maybe a check, attack the queen, take something, or maybe threatening something. So that's why when we always are searching for tactical opportunities, we are calculating that move. So candidate moves, of course, in this position positions are bishop takes f6, bishop takes c6, knight takes c6, maybe e takes d5, knight to d5, maybe even knight to f5, which would be sort of an attack. So these are candidate moves because they're doing something, at least they're threatening something. So that's why there are many candidate moves. That's why maybe this tactic is a little bit tough to solve. So okay, here in the continuation, Wesley played, as I said, simply the best move. He plays knight takes c6. We have bishop to c6. We have now bishop to f6. Everything is pretty much forced. Even if you try this one, then of course we first take, and the problem is now after king to g7, you can also face this one, knight to d5, and suddenly here black is simply tactically lost. You have to bring the queen somewhere, and now in the continuation we can also try queen to d4. You have lost your dark square bishop, then of course it's game over simply for black. Black will simply get challenged too much here on the dark square. So that's why after move bishop to f6 here, Jorden van Foreest played bishop to f6, but now comes the beautiful tactic, knight takes d5. Great move. Again, if you take the knight, you lose the rook. If you take, of course, the bishop, then of course we take the queen. So you have to react. It's a now huge tactical problem. So after move knight to d5 in the continuation, Jorden van Foreest played c takes d5. We have bishop to e8, and in my opinion, as I said, this is simply game over. Great tactical calculations here by Wesley. So we have bishop to b7, queen to a4. We have d takes e4, queen to d7. Great counter attack here by Wesley. So he's counter attacking here against this weak f7 pawn. The problem is now, of course, this long diagonal, which is covered by the light square bishop. There are maybe some opportunities for black, but Wesley so has, I think, this particular line prepared somewhere at home in his deep analysis. So he plays now really the correct move, queen to d7. He's counter attacking. In the continuation, we have now this one. We have e takes f3, but now queen to f7. We have king to h8. We have now g takes f3. We have bishop to g7 here. Jorden van Foreest is trying to cover everything. Now queen to g6, trying here to simplify the game by trading off the queens. We have rook to queen to b2, and now bishop to c6, which was maybe one of the best ways here for Wesley so to proceed. Actually, the best suggested move by the top engine is the move rook to b1, but it was almost like a perfection here by Wesley. So this move also is perfectly fine. Bishop to c6, getting rid of this very annoying bishop on this long diagonal. That's actually the only bishop that can harm us through the whole game. So that's why bishop to c6 going it more easily into the games. Here after move bishop to c6, we have queen to b6, rook to c1, we have rook to g8. Now here Wesley so plays queen to e4, bishop to c8, rook to g1, queen to f2, and now bishop to d5, attacking the rook. We have rook to f8, and now after rook to g7 in this position, Jorden van Foreest resigned. Great tactic in the end, because if you take king to g7, then you get this one. You cannot cover with the rook because of the bishop activity. So now king to g6 has to be played, rook to c6, and you're marching here towards a checkmate. Rook to f7, queen to f7. Maybe you can play this one, but again a new check, again a new check, and after queen to h6, this would be a checkmate. So as I said, after move rook to g7 in this position, Jorden van Foreest resigned. So incredible game, beautiful tactics. So as I said, let's go back. Queen to b6, pardon me, this move, queen to b6, was the main issue. So as I said, maybe here the only way to defend this position is g5 after bishop to g3, bishop to f2, bishop to d7, and this could be maybe playable here for Jorden van Foreest. Unfortunately, he played a huge mistake. But as I said, if you're playing maybe the King's Indian from white perspective, I think you should be familiar with this line. It was a very instructive here gameplay by the top grandmaster Wesley So. So it means now that Wesley So is in the semifinals. He won his second day of this match game against Jorden van Foreest with a clear result. He had 2 winning games and 1 draw, so congratulations to Wesley So. But in my opinion, it was something that we expected, because in my opinion, Wesley is sort of a guy that could even win this super event. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. If you want to see more games from this tournament, check out my coverage before with some great games played by Wesley So, Alreza Firouzja, Lee Kwang Liam, and many more. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.